So today I'm just going to look over some Bible verses. I guess I'll take a one-day break from Jeremiah to look at these specific verses just about a topic that I'm always thinking of these days, and it's a really hot conspiracy topic on YouTube. And I guess I might talk about some other YouTube channels. Should I get that out of the way before I get into the verses? Probably. Just because I gave a big preface in my previous video about I don't do shout outs, I don't support other channels, because inevitably, like, most channels do weird things, and like myself included. I understand that there's probably people that certain things that I do or whatever they're not 100% comfortable with, but that's the whole point of you need to use discernment. Channels are You can't just go to a channel and assume that everything that they say is true. Like, at the end of the day, we're all humans and we all have faults, and some of us are going to work in certain ways or think in certain ways and have our own ideas. So anyways, I guess to talk about things that I didn't mention in my last video about a transvestigation channel called Simon Woods, is that, yeah, I think a big glaring issue is, like, he does this weird gematria stuff. I think anybody that tries to make gematria out to be something more than, like, the people in control like numbers, okay? And they do play some simple gematria games, like Pythagorean gematria and even sometimes Chaldean gematria. Like, you could care about that, but then you got to ask your question of, like, why? Are you trying to create confusion? Are you trying to make this stuff seem more complicated? That's why I try to keep stuff simple. Orange 33. If you can get past that, that's most of it. And to understand that they like to play with numbers and do number games and play with symbols and stuff, that's important. But when you're typing mysterious phrases into a calculator, like, red flags. So when I gave the plug to the channel yesterday, I was mostly mentioning their transvestigation related channels and ignoring the weird gematria stuff. And I just think that that is pretty quality in being succinct and actually talking about human anatomy. And of course, yeah, I don't really support any channels. I'll take this time to talk about other channels that I watch. And of course, I don't support everything. I like Jungle Surfer. And so the things, usually my biggest qualm, the reason I don't like to judge people, I mean, I said it earlier, that everybody has their faults, and I don't expect anybody to come watch my channel and take everything that I say as gospel. But I am always thinking about other channels and, like, what, man, I wish you would do it this way, or it would be cool if you fought. Usually I'm thinking about Jesus, that I I would like all the truthers to be on team Jesus and push Jesus and mention that these truths are in the Bible. That's, like, usually number one on my mind, is like, okay, flat earth, you can figure that out. So why don't you understand that the Bible has always been flat earth, and why aren't you on team Jesus? So that always makes me skeptical. And why I try to keep that present all the time on my channel, because I think that's the most important lesson at the end of the day from any of this. If it's not bringing you to Jesus, then it doesn't matter, in my opinion. So that's something that I'm always looking out for. So yeah, that would be Jungle Surfer. I don't think he's Christian, but I guess we can pray for these people. If they can figure out that a bunch of this stuff is fake, you would hope that they can figure out that the Bible has always been saying the truth, and that there's no way out of this place except through Jesus. That's more often than not, it seems like conspiracy channels tend to push, like, New Ageism, or I don't even know. Because I don't know what your explanation would be. Okay, it's flat. Okay, the people in control are crazy liars okay, but that needs to lead you somewhere. What about your soul? What about life after this clown show? And I guess the other thing, and it kind of is related to this video, John Levi. I think my main accounts that I use on YouTube are blocked, because I was just pointing out that John without an H is like the Jewy way to do John, and John Levi, to talk about gematria, John Levi is 33, and what I really don't like about John Levi, I will say that I like the pretty pictures and stuff, but I don't like the personality things, the cult of person. It feels like a cult. And posting every night on Sunday is a little too on the nose for me. Once I appreciated it in a recent video, he mentioned that he realized he was playing a part. And that's when I'm like, okay, some self-awareness. This is good. Because it becomes a responsibility. When you have people in the comments, and this is why I try to shut it down. I don't like it if people try to praise me too much or fluff me up or fluff up my ego. I'm immediately skeptical of that these days. I actually think a lot of Satan's minions, they like to go around and inflate the self-importance of people, and they have bad motives with that. They're trying to create like a cult around you, and it has gross vibes most of the time when you see people just like over the top. It's idolatry. And so I think that when you get a certain amount of people praising you like that and following your every word, that you get a lot of responsibility of what you say and the messages that you put across. And so I'll just say with John Levi, I feel some Jewy mysticism, like talking about God, but has he talked about Jesus before? If you're not, so I get fishy vibes from that, and weird, like you want to be a guru thing. And anyways, so those are mostly the channels that I watch. And I only just recently started looking at Jungle Surfer again. I haven't looked at him in years, but I feel like talking about him just because he was actually like one of the first truther or whatever conspiracy channels I ever watched. So I think that's kind of interesting. He's made a video about me and like the platypus before, trying to say that platypi are real. So I don't know. Okay, that's enough of the blabbing. Let's get to the meat of the video. Revelation chapter 6, verses 15 through 17. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men, and every bondman, and every freeman, hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountains, and said to the mountains and rocks, Fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne, and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? So these are just some cool verses that I think of. Well, I don't have all of these verses memorized or anything, but I just vaguely know of verses that talk about this idea. And that's why I love the internet for Bible study. We have such an amazing tool to be able to look up keywords and have all the relevant Bible verses. I just love that. So Philippians chapter 2, verse 10. That at the name of Jesus every knee should bow, of things in heaven and things in earth and things under the earth. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 10. Enter into the rock and hide thee in the dust, for fear of the Lord and for the glory of his majesty. Here's 21 Bible verses about people in caves. Maybe you know what I'm getting at with this. I'm not going to read all of these, but you could, of course, pause and read through them all if you want to. So it mentions that in terror, people will flee into caves many, many times. So this has happened before, and it'll probably happen again. And what's interesting too about this is it seems to come alongside verses of like, it's like an equalizer almost. Like there's days of calamity, and you could be a shoe shiner, you could be a captain, you might end up in a cave together. That's kind of what it seems like to me. This was a cool verse about Jezebel. For when Jezebel destroyed the prophets of the Lord, Obadiah took 100 prophets and hid them by 50s in a cave and provided them with bread and water. Did I somewhat recently do videos on kings? I think I did. And yeah, this was such a cool part. And that Jezebel was a real person and was slaughtering prophets of God. Oh, there you go. The next verse talks about that. David escaped to a cave. So there is a point of this. There is a point of why I'm talking about this. Well, it's actually a big topic in the, John Levi type community, talking about melted brick and how these used to be cities, and some of them are like part of cave systems. And I mean, another part of what it reminds me of is all the tunnels that are everywhere. Every major city has huge undergrounds. There's, I just typed in like how long tunnel, and this popped up. The Gaza tunnels stretch at least 350 miles, far longer than past estimate. Why, why is it like that? That we're still uncovering the depths of these tunnels. And I personally think a lot of things like, what is it called, the Chunnel? I think all sorts of tunnels have already been there since the last reset, and they refurbish it, clear out the mud, and then they have a ribbon ceremony, and they say, hey, I just built this, come check out my new tunnel. And I don't know, I've said it before that I think that maybe part of Amazon's distribution center has to do with secret underground tunnels, and that's why they're able to transport stuff so cheaply and so well. That maybe it's part of like a government. I mean, of course, I think that all these things like Facebook, although that's not that relevant anymore, it's probably been mostly abandoned. Reddit, anything big like that, I think is an extension of the government trying to pretend to be a corporation or whatever. So part of me does, in the Amazon logo, if you see it, it's kind of like an arrow that swoops under. And so I think that might be hinting to the fact that Amazon uses all the underground tunnel systems. I think that's potentially how the highest class people have always had use of underground tunnels that I think probably span the whole Earth. And yeah, so those are my theories on tunnels. It's just interesting that there's so many tunnels that are already here on Earth, and we're still discovering the depths of them, and the extent of them is just hard to fathom unless you understand that history is a lie. And so, I mean, really the canals too in all the big cities, it's just impossible to think, if you believe what they tell us, it's just impossible to imagine them actually building those things. All the canals that you can see are built right up alongside of them, and all the tunnels. Yeah, I mean, obviously they do build stuff these days, but there's so much of it that I think is historical and from past resets. And talking about those people hiding, to to get to the part about people hiding in caves. So one of the aspects of the old-timey photos that they show us, a lot of times it looks like they have a completely bewildered look on their face. Like this is the first time they've seen the sun in who knows how many years. And we know in the media they have stories. What was the movie Blast from the Past? We know that people, that's a thing, to have a bunker with enough food to survive for how many decades. I believe that when they do these historical resets, I believe it probably involves with blasting a bunch of dust and dirt into the air, and you like create an artificial winter for who knows how long. And that the whole artificial winter thing goes along with, why are they wearing so much clothing? They're always wearing so much clothing. It probably was still cold, and maybe that's where we get tales of ice ages and mini ice ages. They're probably following historical resets. And the bewildered look, it probably is because some of them haven't seen the light of day for 30 years, and some of them maybe survived, were brought up and born and raised underground. And I mean, even the term underground society is probably a throwback to, or an underground whatever. It's probably all referencing the fact that these people came from the underground to repopulate, and they knew the secrets of what had just happened. And it goes along with the insane asylums. The asylums were for people that refused to just be quiet and pretend about the new history stuff, and they would send you to the asylum if you couldn't shut your mouth. Or if going through that trauma made you insane, I assume they would send you there too. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. God bless everyone.